Who was Larry Britt? An employee at a funeral home, the operator of a convenience store, or self-proclaimed investigator? Sit back and listen. It's Wednesday, June 11th, 1986. It's 7:45 in the morning when a young lady walks into the real estate office where she works and finds Larry Britt laying there in the floor, dead, his feet tucked under his back. What was happening? Now, Britt's name had become known to us in the 1970s when he started investigating the death of former McNairy County Sheriff Buford Pusser. He was doing so for Pusser's mother, Helen. And the thing is, Britt was a self-proclaimed investigator, and somehow he had talked her into spending all kinds of money to investigate her son's death. Britt, who was originally from Wisconsin, had worked there as a employee in a funeral home. He'd also had a short time in retail and various other jobs that I really don't know much about. But now he claimed to be an investigator, even though we can find where he had no training as such. One has to wonder, was he in this just purely to extract as much money from Helen Pusser as he could possibly get? Helen Pusser wouldn't be the only time that Britt would go to people wanting to investigate the disappearance of a loved one in order to get money. He had done the same thing with an individual, Larry Holton of Nashville, who was on his way to make a deposit at a Nashville bank from the market that he managed. Now, 4 days after Holton disappeared, Britt would call Holton's wife and tell her that for the sum of $3,000 he would find Mr. Holton. Of course, Britt would deny that he had ever spoken with Miss Holton. But then there's also the case of Jennifer Lynn Wyant, 21, who disappeared after leaving a softball party alone. Family members said that Britt contacted them and told them that for the sum of $2,000 he would locate their loved one. She is still missing at this date. Of course, this brings us back to Britt's own murder. Now, initially, investigators assumed that his death was due to a break-in and robbery at the market and real estate office that were in a complex together. After all, he'd been found with his feet beneath his back, and somehow that didn't sit right with investigators, and rightly so, because that had the earmarks of someone begging for their life before they were killed. And it made it look execution style because he'd been shot in the chest with a .410 shotgun. It wouldn't be long until they came up with a person of interest. Thomas Gaylord Lingle, 39, of Marion, Illinois, had recently moved to Nashville and had been befriended by Britt. They soon learned that they had something in common, and knowing that Lingle was returning to Illinois, Britt encouraged him to pick up some drugs for him and bring them back to Nashville. Of course, Lingle got a little bit leery of this. Britt was last seen about midnight on the night that he was killed. Also seen at that time was a red van, and so investigators started searching the area for someone that drove a red van that Britt might know, and of course they came up with Lingle. Lingle told them that he became afraid of Britt, scared of him because of Britt's demands for wanting him to transport drugs back to the store that Britt operated. Now, the Tennessean newspaper would report that Britt was selling drugs out of his store. So it was all beginning to come together. Of course, as you might assume, it wouldn't be long before Lingle would be arrested and charged with the murder of Larry Britt. A lot of people would suggest that Britt got what was coming to him. I don't know, that's above my pay grade, but at any rate, we do have to ask the question, was Britt the private investigator that he claimed to be, or was he nothing more than a con man who would prey on innocent people who had lost loved ones or had someone disappear, and would he be doing it for money? It makes you wonder what kind of a person would take advantage of others the way that it appeared that Britt did. At any rate, folks, that's one of the many interesting stories that comes from the Pusser legend. It's kind of like the gift that just keeps on giving. About the time that you think that you heard it all, you learn something else. And even now, with the ongoing investigation that the TBI has picked up on, there's a lot yet to come. It's just a matter of time. As most of you know, the TBI's investigation is now complete, and it's been turned over to District Attorney Mark Davidson, who has said that he will take a couple of months to review it, and then we should be able to hear something. And as a result, we may learn how Pauline actually died and who the evidence suggests was behind her death. Well, folks, I'll leave it at that. Just remember, as I always say, truth has no agenda. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.